You've met this person before. They walk into the room like they own it. They speak first, laugh the loudest, correct others with ease. They look fearless. They seem certain about themselves, about their ideas, about the future. But something feels slightly off. Not wrong, exactly. Just hollow. Like knocking on a wall and realizing there's nothing behind it. What you're sensing isn't arrogance, and it isn't true confidence either. What you're sensing is a performance. A carefully constructed illusion known in psychology as fake confidence. And understanding how it works might be one of the most important things you ever learn about human behavior. Let's start by making a distinction that most people never bother to make. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need the room to notice it. It comes from a person's internal relationship with themselves, their track record, their values, their willingness to be wrong and recover. Real confidence can sit in silence without feeling threatened. It can say, "I don't know," without losing ground. Fake confidence is loud, but not always in the obvious way. It's not just the braggart or the bully. It shows up in subtler forms. The person who dominates conversations to avoid being questioned, the one who projects an image of certainty they don't actually feel. The one who performs strength as a shield against the terror of being seen as weak. Psychologists often describe this as defensive self-presentation, a behavioral strategy rooted not in strength, but in the fear of exposure. The clinical term you'll sometimes encounter is compensatory confidence, and it is closely related to concepts like the imposter syndrome, defense, social masking, and what psychologist Alfred Adler called overcompensation, the tendency to push hard in the direction of our perceived deficiencies. In simple terms, fake confidence is what people build when they don't believe they're enough, but can't afford to let that show. Here's where it gets fascinating. When a person experiences a threat to their self-image, someone questions their competence, a failure becomes visible, or they're replaced in a high-stakes environment where they feel out of their depth, the brain activates its threat response circuitry. The amygdala lights up, cortisol rises. The body enters a state of low-grade alarm. Now, for most people, the automatic response to a social threat is either to withdraw, go quiet, shrink, disappear, or to attack, project dominance, assert authority, control the narrative. Fake confidence is largely a learned version of that second response. What's particularly interesting is that over time, the performance can become partially self-reinforcing. Research in embodied cognition, most famously explored by Amy Cuddy at Harvard, suggests that adopting expansive, powerful physical postures can actually shift hormonal states in the short term. The brain begins to believe the body's signal. But here's the catch. That loop only closes if the underlying fear is eventually addressed. If it isn't, if the performance continues without the internal work, the gap between the mask and the person wearing it grows wider over time. And maintaining that gap is exhausting. This is why people who operate in prolonged states of fake confidence often experience deep, chronic anxiety beneath a composed exterior. They're not just performing for others. They're performing for themselves. So how do you actually spot fake confidence in others and, perhaps more importantly, in yourself? There are several behavioral signatures worth knowing. 1. Over-explaining and over-justifying. Genuinely confident people don't feel the need to convince you of their decisions. They make a choice and stand by it. A person operating from fake confidence often gives you 3 reasons where one would do, because they're not really trying to inform you. They're trying to reassure themselves. 2. Fragility to criticism. This is one of the most telling signs. Real confidence can absorb feedback without collapsing. Fake confidence treats criticism as an existential threat. Watch for defensiveness that's disproportionate to the feedback given, irritability, deflection, sudden attacks on the credibility of the person offering the critique. 3. The constant need for external validation. Scrolling compulsively through comments, fishing for compliments in conversation, needing to be told repeatedly that the work is good. Real confidence doesn't require a standing ovation. Fake confidence can't survive without one. 4. Dominating rather than leading. There is a difference between someone who naturally anchors a room and someone who works hard to prevent anyone else from doing so. Interrupting, talking over others, steering every conversation back to themselves. These aren't signs of strength. They're signs of someone who fears what might happen if the spotlight moves. 5. Name-dropping, credential-flashing, status signaling. When someone tells you who they know before they tell you what they think, pay attention. This is status borrowed from external sources because internal sources feel insufficient. Fake confidence doesn't appear from nowhere. It's almost always a response to something. For many people, it begins in childhood environments where vulnerability was punished. Homes where showing weakness invited ridicule, contempt, or abandonment. Where love felt conditional, given when you performed well, withdrawn when you failed. In these environments, children learn very quickly. Do not let them see the real you. For others, it develops through repeated humiliation, academic failure, social rejection, bullying. The psyche constructs a persona as a protective shell. If they never see the part of me that could be hurt, it can't be hurt. There's also a cultural dimension. Many societies, particularly those shaped by hypermasculine norms or extreme achievement culture, treat uncertainty as weakness and certainty as virtue. In these environments, saying "I don't know" or "I'm struggling" is socially punished. The result is an entire population trained to perform knowledge and confidence they don't fully possess. And social media has amplified this to an almost absurd degree. When every moment of your life is curated for an audience, the performance of confidence becomes indistinguishable from your actual identity. You start to lose track of which is which. Here's what no one tells you about fake confidence. It works. In the short term, it absolutely works. People give social authority to those who project certainty, may follow the loud voice in the room. They trust the person who seems most sure of themselves. So the strategy gets reinforced. But the long-term costs are severe. Relationships suffer. Intimacy requires vulnerability. You cannot be genuinely close to someone while maintaining a persona. Fake confidence is fundamentally incompatible with deep connection. The people around you may admire the performance, but they can't actually reach you through it. Decision-making degrades. When you're invested in appearing confident, you stop being able to accurately assess your own uncertainty. You can afford to say, "I might be wrong here," because that cracks the mask. So you make decisions with false certainty and miss the course corrections that genuine reflection would have provided. The anxiety compounds. Every day you maintain the performance is another day the gap between your public face and your inner reality grows. And the larger that gap, the more vigilant you have to be about protecting it. The exhaustion is cumulative and often invisible to those around you. Actual growth stalls. You can't improve what you won't acknowledge. If admitting weakness feels catastrophically dangerous, you stop learning. The fake confidence that was once a coping mechanism becomes a ceiling. Real confidence is not the absence of fear. That's a critical misconception. Real confidence is the presence of a stable relationship with your own self-worth, one that doesn't depend on every interaction going well, every project succeeding, or every person approving of you. Psychologists sometimes describe this as secure self-esteem, a baseline sense of your own value that isn't contingent on performance. It allows you to enter a room without needing to dominate it, receive criticism without being destroyed by it, say, "I was wrong," without feeling like you've been erased, sit with uncertainty without manufacturing false certainty to fill the gap. Let others be impressive without feeling diminished by it, and here's the thing most people find surprising. Genuine confidence is built through exposure to discomfort, not protection from it. Every time you act despite fear, every time you admit uncertainty and move forward anyway, every time you fail, stay with it honestly and get back up. You're building the actual architecture of confidence, not the performance of it, the real thing. The mask works until it doesn't. The foundation lasts. We live in a culture that has made a commodity of confidence. It's packaged in TED Talks, sold in self-help books, performed in every corner of social media. But what we're mostly selling each other is the aesthetic of confidence, not its substance. The real work is quieter. It requires sitting with the parts of yourself you'd rather no one saw. It requires the terrifying honesty of saying, "I am uncertain, I am afraid, I don't have all the answers," and doing what needs to be done anyway. That's not weakness. That is, in the most precise psychological sense, what genuine strength actually looks like. The question isn't whether you've ever performed confidence you didn't feel. Almost everyone has. The question is whether the performance has become so constant, so habitual, that you've forgotten what was underneath it. Because underneath the performance, usually, is a person who simply learned that being themselves wasn't safe. And the work of real confidence is the slow, difficult, deeply worthwhile project of proving that wrong.